This is for today's reading, October 5th. If you emanate peaceful thoughts, they'll surround you with a protective aura and create a barrier against all negativity. Any agitation around you then will no longer be able to touch you. So now Jyotish will speak, and then I'll share a little bit after him.
I'll talk first a little bit about the seed thought, the very, very important seed thought that is contained in these lines. And I'll come back because to apply it to peace specifically. But what Swami is saying in this statement is that our consciousness produces around us an aura that is built upon the quality of our consciousness. So if you have a peaceful vibration, peaceful thoughts, and peaceful consciousness, then you have an aura around you of peace. If you have a joyful nature, you create an aura that's joyful. If you have a calm nature, you have an aura of calmness, and so on. So we have actually an aura around us made up of the various qualities of our heart, but more importantly, of our mind and the thoughts, but more importantly, of the particular kind of vibrations of chitta, or the heart feeling quality that we have. The more we meditate on these qualities, because the higher qualities are the qualities of God. Peace is one of the 8 qualities of God. Wisdom, joy, love, calmness, light, sound, and power are the others. But as we meditate, say each morning, as you meditate and leave with the vibration of that meditation, that produces an aura around you, because thoughts and feelings have power. They're magnets. Master said that the body is a series of horseshoe magnets. And so the 2 feet, there's a horseshoe magnet that comes up, and he said the center of the body's horseshoe magnet is the ego. And the 2 feet are the positive and negative poles of that. And so according to the vibrations of our ego, what basically the ego is trapped by likes and dislikes, by the feelings, the chitta. So the ego, the sense of self attached to the body, is a magnetic aspect. I once saw a video, and I don't know how they made it, but it was a video of the magnetic aura surrounding. This was not, I'm not talking here about the spiritual aura, the more subtle aura, but just the magnetic vibrations, the magnetic waves that surround a person. And it was like seeing a whole being that is just vibrating. And they did a video of this man walking down the hall, and it was like something out of science fiction, because the physical body, the cells themselves, the energy, the movement of the muscles, all of that creates a flow of energy, and where there's energy, it produces magnetic waves. And so these waves are surrounding us, but here what we're talking about more specifically is that our consciousness produces a flow of energy. So if our consciousness is flowing in peaceful, loving, kindly thoughts, that produces a flow of energy, that particular vibration produces a magnetic aura around us. And so most people can tell, not necessarily visually, but most people can tell by feeling when you come in the presence of somebody who is peaceful or who is kind. Before they say a word, it was said that Buddha's first lecture, his first class, was when he walked toward the disciples, because after his enlightenment they could see in the very way that he walked, in his vibration, in the demeanor, in the aura around him, some difference, some vibration, aura of an enlightened person. And so every thought and every feeling and every will and every action produces a flow of energy, and each of those produces a part of the magnetic field that surrounds us. So you can see how complex this is, what complex beings we are. Master said that we have, on average, about 1,000 thoughts a day, meaning, not the little flittering ones, but actual thoughts of a significant nature. Now, each of those 1,000 thoughts produces a flow of energy, and that flow of energy produces a magnetic aura around us. And so all of that kind of accumulated, taken together, the nature of our thoughts, of those 1,000 thoughts. So we might have, if we're talking about peace as the vibration, we might have, if we're of the peaceful type, we might have predominantly peaceful thoughts when we are driving in traffic. We aren't angry at the other people driving. We aren't upset at the government for not repairing the roads. And so our thoughts are primarily peaceful and harmonious. And when we do that, we produce that peaceful aura around us. But out of let's say we have 50 thoughts out of our 1,000 while we're driving to work. Maybe 10 of those thoughts are upset thoughts. And they're of a whole variety, but according to the nature of all of that put together, then we are basically of a certain type of person. We're a basically calm person, or a basically restless person, or a basically peaceful person, or a basically conflicted and conflicting person, loving or angry and hateful, and so on. And so we're in between those two poles. Now, this we're talking about individually, but also groups have vibrations. That's why, as we were talking about last night, the meditations here, the satsangs, the friendly interactions, the desire to serve, all of that, that is going to produce a group magnetism here at the Ananda Sangha. And people who come here will not only feel and be affected by that, but because magnetic influence you put, Master said, you put a weak magnet next to a strong magnet, and that weak magnet becomes stronger. And in a very powerful magnet, the way you can magnetize a bar of steel is to put it in an electromagnet, and it aligns the molecules all in a north-south direction. And that's what gives a north and south pole to a piece of steel and allows it to become a magnet. Or if you think of, now we're not aligning the molecules, we're aligning the thoughts around the axis of peace. And so if you have a group that's very peaceful, others coming into that aura, their thoughts and their magnetism becomes aligned along the axis of being peaceful. And so a peaceful group has an influence of others around them to make them more peaceful. And it works in very, very practical ways. I've seen a lot of times people will come in to a group and they're restless or they're upset, or we have a meditation retreat and people will come and they're very distracted, they're a little distraught, they're worried, they're anxious, and after a day or two, they begin to change and they'd say, what is happening here? And they ascribe it to the outward environment. Oh, there's a beautiful view and forest and the animals are peaceful. Well, why are the animals peaceful? They aren't peaceful somewhere else. They're peaceful because the consciousness at Ananda village is peaceful, and we have deer walking around as if they're pet cats. And just because they feel that vibration of peace. And so a group produces a vibration of peace if that's the group's vibration. So as we come here and we meditate together, and in meditation, Master said that what that really is deep concentration on God or on one of His qualities. So one of God's qualities is peace. And so as we meditate and we meditate on God or on the quality of peace, we produce in our group magnetism an aura, and that aura is also protective. That's what Swami says in here. And that protective aura will help to ward off negative energies that otherwise would come to us and otherwise impact us. And so Devi and I travel all over the world. We're never worried about, people coming up and being angry and stealing from us, or some bomb going off or something like that, because we feel that we're protected by the vibrational aura of peace and love and harmony and joy and those qualities of God, because we've meditated on them over and over again. And not just meditated, but then tried to apply those qualities, live with those qualities in daily life. And so that produces an aura around us. And I know, now you might ascribe this to our position as the spiritual directors or dharmacharyas, but if I come into a room and there's any disharmony or people arguing in that room, it immediately stops. And you might say, well, of course, they don't want to get caught arguing in front of me. And so there is a little bit of that. But that began to happen 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that I just have a calm vibration. And people don't act outwardly in upset manner, generally speaking. I mean, I don't want to say it's voodoo or anything like that. It isn't that it's always that way, but it's generally that way. And you too, if you look at your life according to the vibrational aura that you put out, people around you will be affected. And therefore a peaceful vibration will protect you from the negative vibrations of people around you. Maybe not completely. If your aura is powerful enough, Patanjali says one who is completed in nonviolence, perfected in nonviolence, even wild animals become tame around him. There was a story, an incident in Master's life, where he was out with some boys in the jungle, and they stayed overnight, and the driver of the bullock cart that had carried them out there had not put the bulls away for the night in the shed as he should have. And in the clearing with the moonlight, they could see a tiger coming, intending to attack the bulls, to eat one of them. And so Master went out and just looked at that tiger with so much love and so much peaceful vibration that the tiger came up and rolled at his feet, and he scratched its tummy a little bit. Then it got up and trotted off into the jungle. And there are similar stories for many great saints where they have the power with this vibration to control what otherwise would be unpeaceful and negative scene around them. And so this element of protection is around us. On the other side, it works in the opposite way too. And if you get a group that is filled with anger, filled with hatred, and you get some leaders who keep talking about how we should hate these people, how we should be angry, how it's righteous to go and kill these people, then that negative thought pattern comes into the group, and they will attract violence to that group, and they will produce violence. And that's how war is produced. It's produced as an outcome of negative thoughts. Master, actually, I was just reading today, Master said that war is the waste product of negative thinking. And he said that negative thinking builds up in the system of a country or of a group like toxins, and it has to be expelled. And so it's expelled in warfare. And so you can see these terrorist groups, where they're constantly preaching the righteousness of violence, that toxin builds up, and it has to be expressed outwardly. And so they go to war, they go into combat, and they're constantly drawing to themselves because like attracts like, negative and violent action attracts to that group negative and violent reaction. And peaceful, harmonious thoughts attract to that group peaceful and harmonious actions or reactions in return. And so there's a very, very important principle that underlies this whole topic that Swami has touched on here. This living wisely, living well is, I think, one of his greatest books. It's, in a sense, it's a manual. It is a scripture for how to live in a very practical, with these little thoughts put in a very practical way. But many of them, this one is a very good example of that. Many of these statements are things that we should read and meditate on. We tend to end the morning meditation with reading the day's reading from Living Wisely, Living Well. Actually, we have so many things we're trying to do at the end of the meditation. We're trying to do healing prayers and prayers for world peace and so on, but it would actually be better to read it and then meditate on that statement for at least a few minutes to try to get a deeper sense of it. Master said that when I found this just delightful, he said that when I get up in the morning, I think ahead in the day of how I'm going to behave. Now, I think he was saying it for our sake. I don't think he needed to ponder how he was going to behave, because he behaved, he was completely aligned to God, and so he behaved as God behaved through him. But for our sake, he was saying, I think ahead of the day how I'm going to behave. And so if we were to do that, thinking of this statement that we've just read together, and the question of peace, then that thinking ahead of how we're going to behave during the day, to look ahead at what the activities are. Are you going to work? Are you going to, what is the condition of the work? Who are you likely to meet at work? What about your family? What about the family circumstances? All of those things, and kind of think ahead and project peace and peaceful thoughts, peaceful actions into that, like having a little schedule When I meet my boss, I will be peaceful with my boss. When I come home from work, I will be peaceful with my family, and project those thoughts ahead and convince the mind that that's what you're going to do. And if you do that, then you will follow along. Otherwise, if you don't take control over your mind and over your actions, whatever magnetism is coming at you will cause you to be drawn into that magnetism. So if somebody's upset, you'll be upset and be drawn into that magnetism. But if you've prepared yourself and magnetized yourself ahead of time, if somebody is upset, you won't be drawn into that reaction. And you will be a magnet and have an aura of peace and calmness around you. And the person who's upset will be drawn into that behavior pattern. And so we're always influencing in this way. But it's a beautiful and very deep topic that Swamiji has touched on.